Hello! Welcome to Insanity! I am so glad that you could be here today. My name is Rich, the channel is called New Memphis, and prepare yourselves, friends, as we paint the finest of Sigmar's army, crafted by his very own hand, the Stormcast Eternals. Better appreciate that. I don't break out the trailer voice for just anyone. Specifically, we're doing these three Praetors this week. Not that it really makes much of a difference. Pretty much every Stormcast model is just dudes in heavy armor with big weapons. But I think we can make them a little bit more interesting. First and foremost, by embracing the lore of them returning from the underworld. And since I wanted them to be across the color spectrum from the Cruel Boys that we've also been painting, it gives me a chance to break out the true protagonist of this channel. The Stormcast are a very, very cool faction, and their inclusion in Age of Sigmar definitively makes the setting better. But I did insult the Cruel Boys, so I'll go after the Stormcast too. I do wish that Games Workshop would give them a little more personality, lean into the undead theme, and lean into the idea of them basically just being demons of Sigmar. And honestly, just stop trying to make them Space Marines. Stop trying to make them Space Marines. We already have Space Marines. We already have like 50 codex pages of Space Marines. Literally, the entire reason that I came to Age of Sigmar, the reason I still love Age of Sigmar as a setting, is because I don't have to be painting dudes in heavy armor all the time. I am so tired of painting metal. Just so tired. With that in mind, let's break out the Vallejo Clear Orange and get started on our very first Stormcast models on this channel. And remember to subscribe, or don't, I'm not your mother. Decided to go with Sam Adams Winter Lager. I'm not a huge fan of Sam Adams, if I'm being entirely honest, but kind of like drinking the Leinenkugel's Berry Weiss back in, what was it, like August or November or somewhere in there. You know, it's the last taste of the season. Got to enjoy winter while it's still here. Look at that. Let's get started. There were two important things I wanted to do with these models. I wanted them to be different from Games Workshop's Oops All Gold aesthetic, and I wanted them to contrast nicely with the Cruel Boys that also came in the Dominion box. The basing will be the same as the Cruel Boys, and it starts with our cheap Royal and Langnickel paint globbed all over and left to dry for a couple of hours. Here they were after the bases were dry, and they were primed in rusty red. I wasn't sure where I wanted to go from here, so I grabbed one of our original test bases from, I think it was a few weeks ago. We'll use it as a little testing palette. I wanted to see how this color looked washed, and I was deciding between either using flat green or the same royal blue that we used on the Cruel Boys for a wash. So at the end of it, I think the blue did end up looking better with the orange, so that's what we're going to end up going with. With that decided, let's start doing some base coats. First will be cork brown. I'm just using this on all of the accent pieces, like the asymmetrical armor panels, the lining of their gauntlets, and on their little halo. I actually want attention being drawn to their face, so I want that to be brighter and more vibrant. I think using a brown on these areas will help the orange to pop. Next we'll use deep yellow on the ropes. And then a coat of azure for their cloaks. Then we can use clear orange for real, giving them highlights to the armor panels. Just a few quick touches. On a super colorful model, nothing looks more foreign than gray. So that's what we'll use for their weapons, London Grey specifically. Honestly, this color is so good for metal that I just hardly use actual metallic paints anymore. Just about done. Last, we need some white for the banner. Now we can mix the wash, which is just matte medium, water, and our color of choice. In this case, that's royal blue, and I want it thin enough to not stay on the raised areas, but thick enough it will actually pool in the recesses and not just, you know, fall to the base in a big pool. Here they are after several hours of drying, starting to have an interesting kind of coppery look, which was unintentional, but I am very okay with. The wash did not pool well in these big folds of the cape, so let's just paint some regular royal blue into those areas. Then we'll break out the test base once again. I didn't just want to highlight them with orange again, at least not originally, so I tried pairing our colors with brass, bronze, gold, and silver to see which one looked best. Well, brass did look the best, but I ended up using none of these colors and just highlighting with orange. I did, however, get an idea for next week's video, so be on the lookout for that. As for our Praetors, though, I settled for, again, going back to clear orange, the true protagonist of this channel. Then we'll need azure to highlight the capes. These look great so far, but they're so big they need something to break up that huge flat section. So I grabbed the emerald and applied some very, very small, faint streaks to the cloak. In fact, the first attempt was actually way too intense and I had to be toned back down with more azure, but eventually I got to a point where they were only barely visible. Then we'll basically do the same thing with London Grey, trying to make the color present in the fabric, but not attention-grabbing, if that makes sense. Then we'll use white for the highlights on the banner, and a round of specific highlights on the cloak. Looks great so far. Let's touch up some of those areas of cork brown. Then deep yellow on the ropes again. And turning back to the weapons, we'll start those off by touching them up with London Grey. Then we'll turn back to azure for some chips on the blades of the halberds. Then we'll chip them with deep yellow, and brush a little onto some other sharp areas. And we'll finish them off with a little bit of white. These bases are just painted in cork brown, but we'll follow that with a wash of emerald to recreate our swampy theme. Then bring some color back to the raised edges with a dry brush of cork brown. And then they really come alive with this dry brush of flat flesh. And then finally, we'll touch them up with some flat green on the grass, white on the skulls, and of course a black wash for the eyes and a few other small details. Boy, these ended up looking straight out of hell. Not that that's a bad thing. There are certainly worse places than hell. Like the New York City subway, for instance. Sorry, if you didn't understand that joke, just go ahead and Google "man throws cans of fire in metro station," but I won't hold you up any longer than that. Let's go ahead and get on to the good part. So normally I punctuate these videos by doing 2 things I like and 1 thing that I want to do better next time. However, as many of you know, last week my painting footage was deleted by someone who's unidentified but very sorry. So I just threw together a video where I talked about the army instead. And it turned out that my audience retention just shot up, even amongst my most loyal viewers, which is fine and funny. So I'm gonna make that its own video where I just talk about these models, the things I liked about the process and things that were interesting. So go ahead and check that out. It should be out in the next couple of days. So that wraps things up here. That is all I have for you right now. I do hope you check out the other video where I talk about these guys, and I will see you in the next one.